Welcome to the Handcrafted Podcast, the business of making things. I'm Paul, founder of Philadelphia Table Company and the Handcrafted Network, and I believe great craftsmanship deserves great business strategy. This podcast is for makers who want to build not just great products, but a thriving business. Each episode will dive into the mindset, systems, and skills that turn craft into success. All right, guys, welcome back to the Handcrafted Podcast. Happy New Year. I'm currently recording this, January 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, something like that. Welcome to 2026. So you guys heard some of the other previous episodes, thanking you guys for listening and how exciting it was to launch this into 2025. So I'm super excited about the growth we're going to do in 2026. So as a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by the Handcrafted Network. It's an online community of other professional makers where you can connect, learn, grow. There's a classroom section, there's live calls, all that sort of stuff to help you grow. If 2026 is the year that you're planning on growing, the year that you want to get your shit together, the year you want to make more money, the year you want to be profitable, the year you want to stop chasing cash, join the Handcrafted Network. I'd love to connect with you. It prompts you to do a one-on-one call with me, so we get to connect, we get to talk. That's kind of my favorite part, and then I sort of get to point you in the right direction to see sort of who the right people are for you to connect with within the group. But it's been amazing. The group has been awesome. With that said, January 16th, we are doing a live strategic revenue planning yearly seminar. So I did this last year. It was super successful. It's something I do every year with Philadelphia Table Company. We're going to talk about it a little bit on the podcast episode today. I'm a big believer in setting goals, but setting achievable goals. So what I like to do is sort of break those goals down. So there's worksheets, there's handouts, all of that sort of stuff. We're going to do it live on air, on Zoom, together with the other community members. I'm going to be doing it live. I'm going to show you guys how to do it. It'll give you a great chance to ask questions and all that sort of stuff. So if you're interested in doing that, unfortunately, it's for only paid members. So make sure you sign up for the group. You can sign up for just 1 month and just do this if you want, just the seminar. But last year we did it. It was great. A lot of people are still using it this year. So it's been awesome. All right. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. So there's been a lot of talk about, obviously, New Year's, like new year, new me, resolutions, all of that sort of stuff. And I think there's kind of a big difference between resolutions and goal setting. Resolutions are usually things that are, sometimes like unachievable. Like, this is the year I quit smoking. This is the year I get a 6-pack. This is the year I stop drinking. Or this is the year, I gave like some examples of things you probably should not be doing. But this is the year that I make $1 million or something kind of crazy. So resolutions are often not really, we find ourselves often, coming back to the same resolutions over and over again because we set ourselves up for failure. We don't really set ourselves up for success with that. And also one thing I wanted to mention too is January is kind of a tough time to get those sort of like personal sort of goals together and those personal resolutions together. Because in the Northeast, it's like cold, it's quiet, it's dark, it's hard to feel motivated. So what I like to do is I like to sort of do goal setting instead. Unfortunately, I'm running a business. You are kind of tied to the fiscal year. You could say your year starts a different time, but it's always helpful for me to sort of do like a full reset in January. And one of the things, and I'm sure many of you guys do, which is what we're going to talk about here, and we'll also talk about a few other things, is have like a revenue goal. So setting a revenue goal, I think, is really important and very helpful, but you want to make sure that it's something that's absolutely attainable, that's something that's achievable. So this is going to be a podcast you're going to want to maybe save, earmark, come back to when you have like a minute to sit down and sort of like write all this stuff out. I'm going to kind of talk you through a step-by-step way of which that I do it. So with that said, I wanted to also talk about that revenue goals aren't necessarily always the best goals. So if you're somebody that has a team, for me, I always had worked from revenue goals. I was always like, hey, I want to hit X number. I want to hit X number. But what happened is I realized it wasn't really a team goal. It wasn't something that I could get my entire team and company to rally behind, because at the end of the day, it's just me. If I'm the one doing the sales, they're just making the stuff, or they're just running the company, doing the operations and the designs and all that sort of stuff. So I like to find sort of a team goal. So if you do have a team, I think it's helpful to find something that the entire team can rally behind. So a few things for me were a number of positive reviews, press publications. We do now, one of our main goals is efficiency goals. So we have to hit X amount of stuff out the door within a certain time frame. So, we have a goal of however much per month. I think we do now, we're up to like $170,000 per month out the door. So finished projects. That's something the entire team rallies behind, because, if I'm not selling the things at a high enough price, if my operations director isn't pushing it through, if the designer isn't getting the designs done, if the team isn't making it, then we're not going to hit that goal. So it's really a good team goal. So if you have a team, I think a team goal is really helpful. I also have revenue goals on the side as well, because that's also super helpful. So today I want to really focus on those revenue goals, because I know that many of you guys have these revenue goals. And I want to break it down and figure out and help you sort of figure out a step-by-step way of doing this. For me, goals are all about setting achievable goals and achieving them. So it's pointless to just say, hey, I want to make $500,000 this year, if there's no goals in place, if there's no mini goals, if there's no micro goals. So what I want to do is, if you have a piece of paper, you're going to take a piece of paper out, or you're going to kind of do this as a mental exercise. You're going to have 3 different paper sheets. So the first sheet 1 is going to be your yearly goal. Sheet 2 is going to be your monthly goal. And then sheet 3 is going to be your weekly goal. At the top of sheet 1, what I'd like you to do is sort of write what that goal is that you would like to hit. So let's say, for easy numbers, let's say $500,000, okay? And we're going to be using, I know I have many listeners here that don't do tables or custom furniture, but I'm just going to use tables just because it's like an easier example. So if you want to hit that $500,000 number, I usually start at the year and sort of set what that goal is. And then what I do is I jump to page 3, which is going to be your weekly goal. And sometimes your weekly is helpful. Sometimes you might jump back up to monthly. So what I like to do is go, okay, on average, how many pieces am I selling per week? How many average pieces am I selling per month? And then we're going to equate that into the years. So, you know what, let's make the math easier. Let's do say your goal is $120,000. I don't have my calculator in front of me, so this will make it a heck of a lot easier. So if your revenue goal for the year is $120,000, what does that mean? That means you need to make $12,000 per month, which means you need to make $3,000 per week. So what does $3,000 break into? What you're going to do is you're going to write out the things that you're selling, whether it be cutting boards, whether it be dining tables, whether it be cabinetry, whether it be I don't know, any sort of random things that you write out, and write out what the dollar value is. So if I have a goal of $3,000 per month and I sell cutting boards for 100, how many of those do I need to sell to hit $3,000 a week? How many of those do I have to sell to hit that $3,000 number? And when I was able to break this stuff down, this is what was really, really helpful to me, is I was able to see, okay, all I need to do is sell 1 table per month. So if you sell tables for $3,000 and your revenue goal is $120,000, you just need to sell 1 table per week, which is totally attainable, totally reasonable, totally believable. But if you don't think you're doing 1 a week, jump back up to the month number, go to page 2 and look at it and go, okay, monthly, what am I doing? Maybe I'm only doing 2 tables per month, and that revenue is going to be $6,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to then reverse engineer back all the way up to figuring out what your yearly revenue is going to be to make it so it's so attainable. But when I was able to actually break those physical numbers down, so, taking a huge number, where I first did this actually was when I wanted to cross the $1 million mark. I knew that I had a goal of $1 million. And for me, I was just like, how am I going to hit that, right? So I knew I needed to hit $86,000 roughly a month. And in my head, it was kind of easier to break it down to go, okay, $25,000 per week, which is how many of individual pieces. So whether you're selling chairs or tables or whatever, I then broke that down individually. So it's really helpful to sort of take that big number, crunch it down, and bring it down into like little segments. That also sort of gives you what, like, I don't want to say like your rallying cry, but it just gives you your goal of what you're supposed to hit. And what's really helpful is knowing, okay, if I just hit my 1 piece this week, I did it. I hit my goal for the week. And look, sometimes I understand, like, there have been times where I was beating myself up. I didn't hit my revenue. I didn't hit the 80 when I was doing this, way back when. I didn't hit that 85. I was like, oh no. I was feeling really down. But just know, if you're not going to hit 85 this month, maybe next month you'll hit 95. Maybe the next month you'll hit 100. But really breaking down what you need to do and what you need to sell. Once you break down what those specific numbers are, you can go out and be like, okay, cool. I just need to sell 1 table this week. I just need to sell 10 cutting boards this week. How am I going to do that? And take the mental brainstorm and breaking down and saying all these individual goals. Once you also list all the different things that you're doing, all the different revenue streams, so you might maybe do tables, maybe do chairs, maybe do cutting boards, right? Break that $3,000 just for the easy number we had talked about. Break that $3,000 into how many reasonably how many cutting boards you could sell that week, how many tables, how many chairs, all that stuff. And what I like to do too is if you're trying to hit that number, say you don't get close to that 120 when you start doing it, figure out what other things you can add. One of the things that we had talked about in my company for a long time was doing like care kits. Okay, if we sell 100 care kits and the care kits are $50, that's another $5,000 that we can add to the bank. So it's a really great way to look and see what are the things that we can add to increase that top line number. It also gives you a really good idea of whether your goal is realistic or not. So if you're at a position now where you're selling maybe 1 table a month, I don't think it's a reasonable goal to say, hey, I'm going to sell 4 tables per month all of a sudden. Like, it's not going to necessarily jump like that. I would say maybe try for 2. And as the year adjusts, as you start to move on, you start to change the numbers then. One thing I also want to emphasize too is the winter tends to be a slower month for my business. I think it tends to be a slower month for most people's businesses, especially coming out of the holidays. People spent a ton of money. They're a little less, they're a little more reluctant to spend money on things. So don't beat yourself up if this doesn't start working in January, if this doesn't start working in February or even March. But what you want to do is set that goal, treat it like, you need to make bail, like figure out what that monthly nut is that you need to make and reverse engineer it. Figure out how to do it. How am I going to sell this one piece? How am I going to get this out the door? And when you have those times, I get questions all the time where it's like, okay, I always talk about having like a sales day or like being able to sit at your computer and like sell stuff. And so many people are like, well, Paul, like, I don't know what to do. I'm not getting sales. This is where you sit down and you go, okay, I need to sell 1 table this week. How do I do it? Texting your friends, cold outreach, networking, finding it. And when you set that goal and you go, I need to get this there, you start to see your brain starts to connect the different ways of going from, that hustle mentality starts to come out, how to go from $0 to $3,000 in a week. The other thing too I've done in the past is I've been like, oh, actually I've undershot my goal. So if I'm doing usually 4 tables a month or 5 tables a month, and then I go and look at my number and I'm like, oh, wow, actually, this doesn't seem like that crazy for me to do 1 more piece per month. And what are the marketing efforts that you're doing to get that 1 more piece, whether it be, a showroom or advertising or cold outreach or connecting. Maybe you have a great relationship with an interior designer who's going to start bringing you work monthly. But you can sort of dial and tweak this along the way. I just like to set it in January because it helps me sort of like look forward and forecast a little bit. And what I'll do is on a worksheet, I write down the project. I have a CRM too, but you can also do it by paper. And I think I talked about this in a previous episode, but I'll just say, hey, project name, quoted amount, and then if it closed. So what I try to do is at the beginning of the month, be like, okay, cool. And then at the top, write what my goal is. So if my goal is, $100,000 for the month, I write $100,000 at the top. And then I start writing all the potential projects that are coming in to see if I can add up to that $100,000. If I can't add up to that $100,000, I better start hustling and I better start finding people that are going to be doing that are going to help close the deal. Otherwise, it's a matter of sort of adjusting what that expectation is to say, hey, it's going to be dialed back. The other thing I want to say too is like, if you're not hitting your goals, it's not a huge deal. I think so many of us beat ourselves up over it. Goals are just a thing to sort of motivate us. They're a reason for us to get out of bed, a reason for us to check our email, a reason for us to continue to move forward. And sometimes the goals are really hard to hit, and it's a matter of setting a strategy in place. The other thing that we're going to do on the 17th as well is I do a quarterly strategic planning thing too, where we break down the goals into micro goals and figuring out, hey, if I need to sell X, what are the things that I need to do? Who's going to be doing it? Who's responsible in getting these there, and how am I going to do that? So don't beat yourself up over goals. I think goals are one of those things that are a love-hate for all of us. It's always great to look back and be like, oh my God, look at the things that we did. But, it's also it's also hard to look back and look back and say, hey, wow, I didn't really get to where I wanted to be. Again, it's not about beating yourself up right now. It's just figuring out what that attainable goal is and then setting those little achievable goals. So if it's hack away at one, say you're just starting and you want to just do one piece a month, great. Spend 27 of those days in that month to sell that one piece until you actually sell it. Once you sell it, great, you can move on or try for 2 and see where it goes from there and start building and building and building and building. Building a business takes time. It's slow. It's a slog. But remember what you're investing in. And at the next podcast, I'm going to talk about this as well. As I'm going to talk about the value of growing the company, the value of investing in yourself and investing in the future and investing on moving the company forward. So with that said, guys, don't beat yourself up over the goals. I think it's really helpful to come up with the strategic planning thing. Again, break it into year, month, week. I have 3 different sheets of paper. We have all this stuff in the group. So if you want to see these actually as handouts, you could send me an email, paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. You can sign up for the group, thehandcraftednetwork.com. I have all this stuff written out in there. But anyways, you have 3 sheets. One sheet is your yearly revenue. So how many pieces are you going to be selling to hit that yearly nut? You have your month. How many pieces are you going to be selling per month to hit that yearly amount, that monthly amount? And then how many pieces are you going to be selling per week to hit that weekly amount? And again, it's not just one thing. I want you to write out all of the individual revenue incomes you have, whether that be repair services, whether that be if you're doing ceramics, maybe it's mugs and bowls and vases. Hey, how many of each of these things do I have to sell? Maybe one of them sells for more than the other. And then work your way. And what happens is it actually makes that yearly number look a lot smaller as you start to go down into the weekly thing and focus on that. And if you focus on 1 week at a time, just slowly chip away, you'll get to where you want to be at the end of the year. So I like doing it this way. I like breaking it down. Again, we're going to be doing this live on January 16th. I'm going to talk you through it. I'm going to do it live for my company, Philadelphia Table Company, and you'll get to see how I sort of mentally think about this stuff and move forward into the new year. All right, guys. So hopefully this was helpful. I have a whole bunch of other podcast episode ideas coming to you. I just wanted to sort of tap on this New Year thing one more time. I'm sure you guys are so over the New Year, New Me stuff. Just wanted to do one more little hack at it. And, remember, it's about goals, not about resolutions. So you're not doing life-changing things. You're setting these little micro goals that are going to get you to where you want to be. All right, guys, have a good one. I'll catch you next week. Peace.